Morning, class. Welcome back to history. Hope you guys are enjoying the first few days back to school. I'm excited to be going into learning more about the American Revolution with you this morning. It's a little chilly at my house, so I'm wearing my sweatshirt. I hope that you guys are safe and warm at your homes. Like I said, diving into chapter 2, but before we do, let's review what we learned in chapter 1. What did we talk about? If you haven't watched that yet, make sure you go back and watch that. The modules right now are set up to be, you have to do them in sequential order, so you have to do the things in order. So if you feel like you can't move on to the next one, it means you probably have missed clicking on and viewing a page from a previous assignment or discussion post. So that should be the same with all modules in history, science, and literature when I get that one up today. Just let you know about that. So make sure you've watched chapter 1. Chapter 1, we talked about the immigrants who came to the colonies, right? We talked about how they came from mostly England, but also Norway, Ireland, Scotland, Sweden. Talked about how immigrants started to share ideas. One thing that we learned was how the Swedes, or those people from Sweden, were creating log cabins and how they shared that idea with, let me grab this really quick, with other people, and other people started using that as well. We talked about how 9 out of 10 people lived on farms and they were self-sufficient, that they created their own furniture that they needed, made their own clothes, they farmed their own food, and sometimes they had enough to sell to others. We also learned that 1 out of 5 people that came to the colonies came by force, that they were enslaved people, and almost all the enslaved people came from Africa. And that's about, it's some of the things that we learned last time. So I'm excited to get to chapter 2 with you. Chapter 2 is if you had lived in the colonies. So first, I want you to think about your daily life right now. What is a day in the life of Mason or Zayden? What do you guys do in a day? When do you wake up? What do you eat for breakfast? What chores do you have? What are the things that you do in a day? So take a time and think about that. Well, in this video, we're going to learn what the average day was like for the colonial child to live during the 1750s, right? So right now, you probably, wake up around, 7 to 8. You get ready for school. Some of you, are going to school when the school opens back up. Some of you are staying home. You're doing school at home. Maybe some of you guys have chores, taking the trash out, doing the dishes, maybe cleaning the bathrooms. And then maybe some of you guys, like to watch movies or play games or go play sports or do some, outside activities. If those, probably some of you guys would have done, recreational sports with teams, but because of the COVID, some of that's probably all shut down. So we're going to learn what it was like to be a child during the 1750s, right? If you had grown up. For example, some daily activities for a boy growing up in the colonies were different than for a girl growing up in the colonies. Life was also different for children of free parents versus enslaved parents. So let's call attention to the big question, right? So remember, you have the big question discussion post for each chapter and also the chapter vocabulary. So the big question, what was daily life like for free colonial children growing up on a farm in comparison to enslaved children? So as we read chapter 2, look for ways that the children growing up on a farm was different than those that were enslaved children, right? Okay, so let's begin reading and follow along with me. Growing up. What would it have been like to grow up in the colonies? Let's spend a little time finding out. We'll begin by imagining that you are a colonist and what your family and daily life look like. Your family probably lives on a farm. 9 out of 10 colonial families live on farms. Chances are your house is pretty crowded. That's because colonists have large families. You have lots of brothers and sisters. How big are your guys' families right now? Do you just have, are you, a single child? Do you have one sibling? Do you have two siblings? Um, my family might be close to a colonial family. There's 7 kids in our family. So I have 6 brothers. Well, I have 5 brothers and 1 sister, 6 siblings. What are the chances that you have your own bedroom? Just about 0. You not only don't have your own bedroom, you don't even have your own bed. You share a bed or a straw mattress on the floor with other children in the family. Now, I know some of you guys might be able to get along with your siblings and share a bed, but there's probably some of you guys that would be like, oh, that would be so rough and hard to share a bed with my brother or sister. So here's a little picture. Let's read the caption together. It says, many colonial children had lots of brothers and sisters. And this looks like a picture of them either, looks like they're looking for their cat. So they're kind of, maybe they lost their cat and they're trying to find it. All right, continue to read. While the house is crowded, you are grateful to have so many kids in the family. You don't have neighborhood friends because you don't have a neighborhood. Only people living in villages and towns have neighbors. So your brothers and sisters are your built-in playmates. Of course, everyone has regular chores to do. That includes you. Everyone's day begins at dawn, if not before. So dawn, meaning when the sun rises. So imagine getting up right now. That would mean you'd get up before or around 7, right? The sun starts to rise at 7, so that's when dawn begins. And then during the summer months, that'd be even earlier because the sun comes up earlier. So, 5:36, you're waking up. If you are a boy, your first job is to bring in firewood and build the fire. Matches don't exist yet, so you hope there is still a burning coal in the fireplace from the night before. If not, you have to start a new fire. After breakfast and morning prayers, you head out to the fields with your father. You plant and hoe and clear away brush from new land that's to be planted next year. So let's pause really quick. And what is a hoe? Let's look at this picture, these pictures right here. I'm gonna pull this over. So you can see these are field hoes. So these would help dig and make like tracks or lanes for planting. This looks like a one that you would hook up to a tractor, but these ones have handles. These are the ones that they had back in the day. Pretty cool, right? So that's what you're using to prepare the land to be planted. So you even help repair a fence or two. So if you are a girl, let's pause really quick. So colonial children worked hard. So this is a picture of, looks like a boy helping out with the animals with his mother. Okay. So let's learn if you are a girl on the colonial farm. So if you are a girl, you help your mother make candles and preserve foods, starting right after breakfast. Your chores probably also include feeding the animals. Let me pause really quick. So back in the day, to preserve foods, you had to do certain things, and I think part of it required either salt or sugar to preserve foods, and probably a few other things that I don't know about. Maybe your parents or guardians know. But back then, they didn't have these like chemicals or additives that they could add to food to preserve, right? So if you buy an Oreo, it's gonna last years probably, if it sits on your shelf, right? Especially if you don't open the plastic, right? You can usually, when you buy food, you can usually look at the package, either if it's any packaged food, whether it's can or plastic, you can see like expiration date by June 23 or whatever, right? So that's because they have things in there to help preserve that food. And so back then the mother and the girls had to add, I think salt or those different things to help preserve food so it could last, and it wouldn't last that long. It would probably last a week or two max. I think there's probably some ways that they could have made it last like through the winter, right? Because it's hard to harvest through the winter, so some things could last a few months, but they don't last like they do today. The rest of your morning is spent helping cook the noon meal. In the afternoon, you sew, knit, weave, or spin yarn, probably making your guys' clothes, blankets, things to stay warm, comfortable. So did you notice there is no time in your day's schedule for school? That's because you probably don't go to school. How would you guys like that? How would you like to work all day instead of go to school? What are your thoughts? Perhaps you did last year and the year before, but you can read and write now. Most colonial parents feel that once you can do that, you don't need any more school. So a lot of you guys probably wouldn't need school. A lot of you guys are very proficient at reading and writing, and you'd all be done. Chances are, though, you learn to read and write at home. An older brother or sister, or maybe a parent, teaches you when you are 5 or 6. If no one in your family can read, then you might be sent to learn at another farmhouse where someone else can. It is considered important to learn how to read. Nice. So what were some differences between the boys and girls? What did you notice? Well, the boys spent a lot of time outside in the field doing a little bit of the heavy lifting, right? Digging the field, building or repairing fences. And the girls were inside kind of creating the things to help the family be comfortable, whether it is, sewing or knitting clothes or blankets, and then making the food, taking care of the family physically. Okay, so now we're going to get into some things that will help us answer the big question. Children of enslaved people. I haven't passed any vocabulary words. Okay, cool. I just barely saw some that made me think of some. Yeah, we haven't missed any. All right. If you are a child in an enslaved family on a plantation, your life is different. When you are quite young, say 5 or 6, so that's a few years ago for you guys, there is plenty of time for play. In fact, some of your playmates are probably the children of the plantation owner. You may fish, pick berries, and freely explore the plantation fields together. Then, when you reach 7 or 8 years old, you start to take care of younger brothers and sisters. Also, the plantation owner begins to give you jobs like sweeping the yard, feeding the chickens, and collecting the eggs. Even at this age, however, you start to understand that you do not have the same freedoms as the plantation owner's children. So there's going to start to talk about a difference between being a child of enslaved parents or child of parents that lived on the farm, free parents. And here is a picture of enslaved people working in the fields. And remember that most of them came from Africa. So the big change in your life comes when you're about 10 years old. Now you begin life as an enslaved worker. So that's some of you guys being 10 years old. Right now you'd be starting to be an enslaved worker. And this is what you would do. You would work in the fields doing the same hard work as the adults. You plant, plow, and pick cotton from sunup to sundown. Unlike the plantation owner's children, you probably can't read. Depending on the colony you live in, the law may actually forbid anyone from teaching you to read. Probably didn't want you to read because then you would be like a free man, and they want it to be a distinct difference between being enslaved and free. And it doesn't say anything in there about the difference between girls and boys. So as you can tell, we have women and men working in the field. So whether you are a boy or a girl, it looks like you'd be doing all the same work as the enslaved parents or adults. That should give you a lot of differences between the difference between a child of enslaved parents and a child of free parents. Okay, sickness and cures. Sickness is a serious problem in every colonial home. Many children die from disease. Little is really known about why people get sick or how they can get well and stay well. All right, so let's pause really quick and go over some of these vocabulary words, especially the ones I missed. So, enslaved means forced to become a slave. So, these people did not choose to be slaves, they were forced. And a plantation is a large farm where cash crops are grown by the people or by the person who owns the land. So, cash crops, talked about cotton that they pulled from sun up to sundown. And that was sold. So they are working to help the plantation make money. And then we just read about a disease or a sickness, right? So like the COVID, or the flu causes a disease, causes a sickness to come upon you, right? All right. So a lot of people think they know though. Sorry. A lot of people think they know though. A lot of people think they know though. I guess how to get well from diseases. I was kind of confused for a second. Sorry, guys. They make their own medicines from plants called herbs and also from the roots and barks of trees. So, an herb, let's look at our definition, a plant used to give food flavor as medicine. So, you have herbs like cilantro, parsley, oregano. You go look in your spice cabinet at your home, and you'll probably see a lot of herbs and spices in there. So, do you have a cut that isn't healing? Swelling that won't go down? A bad cold? Perhaps. There's sure to be an herb or root that will cure you. Some of these herbs have been used for hundreds of years and really do seem to help. Others, though, are not so helpful. There are also some special tricks that are supposed to help you get better. For example, to bring down a fever, your parents might cut your toenails, put the clippings in a small linen bag, and tie the bag around the neck of an eel before putting the eel in a tub of water. When the eel dies, your fever supposedly goes down. One of the best educated men in Massachusetts colony recommends that cure. That kind of sounds like a funky cure. Don't think it was very effective because we are not doing that today. I do not want an eel in my house. Ugh. Even if you are just feeling tired, there's a special recipe to help. You roast a toad and grind it up. Then you add boiling water to make a kind of tea. Drink it and you'll be feeling lively in no time. I would feel lively just to not drink the tea. Ugh. For a cold or sore throat, sprinkle pepper on a piece of meat and wrap it around your throat. Would you like to have a piece of meat kind of dangling right here? Let's look at some more colonial cures. Feed your children only plain foods and not so much sugar, spice, or salt. No eating between meals except for dry bread. Keep them away from candy. That goes with the sugar. See that they sleep on a hard bed, no soft feathers. Bathe them in cold water, even in the winter. How would you guys like to be taking cold showers? I know some probably would like to have just running water at their homes, but cold water is not very enjoyable. Give them very thin shoes that will leak and let in water. A famous man got this idea by noting that poor people often went barefoot and didn't seem to get sick from that. Strawberries, cherries, and gooseberries are good for children. Melons, peaches, plums, and grapes are not, even though they are tasty. Don't give them any. Kind of funny. I think fruits and vegetables are good, but they thought some of the fruits weren't good. Okay, so of course you could go to a doctor. There are a few doctors in the colonies, but visiting one probably won't do much good. There are no special schools for training doctors in the colonies. Doctors don't know much more than most others about making people well. Doctors do have a favorite cure for almost any illness, though. It's called bleeding the patient. To do this, doctors cut a vein in the patient's arm to let blood come out. Of course, the best thing is to stay well. Ugh, bleeding sounds not enjoyable. So, as you can tell, or as reading, you can know that our medicine and medical advances are way ahead of where they were. Some of those colonial cures are kind of funny, kind of gross, but interesting times, and that's what they did. So before we end, let's review our big question. So what was daily life like for free colonial children growing up on a farm in comparison? So the differences to enslaved children. So that's what we're going to be talking about. What was alike and what was different between free children and enslaved children. So some key points or some hints to talk about is at what age did they start to work in the field, and what differences did the free children have with access to maybe education and compared to the enslaved people. And then those are a couple hints and points that you should be covering in your answer to your big question. Thanks for joining me today. I will also be working on chapter 3 and get that posted as well today. So if you want to get ahead, you can watch that today. We are on schedule to cover that tomorrow. There was a just introduction science video for what do you call it? For weather and climate, sorry. And so just watch that and then participate in the big discussion post. We will begin literature next week, since most of you guys are probably picking up your packets. Some maybe got yesterday, some today, and some tomorrow. So literature with Johnny Tremaine, we will start next week. We might have to catch up a few chapters, but we will get back on track. If you have any questions, please reach out to me either on Canvas or have your parent or guardian email me on email. You guys are awesome. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day. See ya.